Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Rewind That. It's your girl, Miss K. If this is your first time coming across my channel, welcome. Please be sure to subscribe if you like the vibe and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload more videos like this one. Okay, now today we are going over our Breaking Bad series Rewatch Season 1, episode number 5. And this episode is called Gray Matter. Okay. Now, the episode starts off with Jesse, who tries to get a sales job but finds out that he needs a college degree for that, right? However, he can be hired as a sign holder, but Jesse was not interested, so he leaves. But then he runs into an old friend of his named Badger, who happens to be a sign holder as well, okay? Now we see that Badger is just keeping this job because he's on probation, okay? But eventually Badger wants to know if Jesse can hook him up with some crystal. But Jesse says, nah, man, I'm thinking about retiring. So Badger was like, no, man, you can't retire. That stuff you cooked was amazing. So after Jesse explained that his last partner was a butthole and pseudo was getting harder to come by, Badger tells him that he can hook him up with some pseudo and they can partner up. He tells Jesse that it's no pressure, but just think about it. So Jesse goes into his car and he quickly weighs his options. Stay looking for a job, take the current job offer, or cook meth. This is not what he's saying out loud, but clearly he is definitely thinking as he's looking down at the classified ads, okay? Then we see him get out of the car and we find out later that he chose the meth game again, okay? Next, Walt and Skyler attend a birthday party of Walt's old friend and colleague, Elliot. So Elliot is married to Gretchen, the woman that we saw in Walt's flashback scene a few episodes back. Anyway, Walt gives Elliot some ramen noodles as a gift, and Elliot really loves it because it reminded him of the nights that he and Walt stayed up working on their thesis. We also see that Walt was not expecting for Elliot to love his gift, but it held sentimental meaning to Elliot, okay? Elliot also announced that he was convinced that ramen noodles was responsible for their success. It was like their lifeline or lifeblood, as he put it, okay? Also, at this party, we get to see that even though Walt is probably smarter than all the people there, he turned out to be the least successful. Also, Elliot and Gretchen's company, Gray Matter, was something that Walter played a really big part in, okay? We didn't get the full story of everything, so we'll just move on. But the point is, Walter is not living up to his full potential, and we see that here at the party, okay? Later on, Walt and Elliot sit down and reminisce about old times, and Elliot tells Walt that he should come work for him because he misses working with him. Plus, they could really use someone like Walt who can help them solve problems that they get stuck on. Then Walter tries to tell Elliot that he's got some personal issues, and Elliot says, there's nothing we can't work out, okay? We also have great health insurance. And that's when Walter knew that Skyler ran her mouth and told Elliot that Walt had cancer. So now Walt is ready to go. And as him and Skyler wait for their car, he confronts her about saying something to Elliot about the cancer. Skyler claims that she was pressed by Elliot, which Walt did not believe. Walt then tells Skyler that she could have just said, he's fine, and the conversation between her and Elliot would have been done. Because, Skyler's argument was that she doesn't have the best poker face nowadays. So when Elliot asked her how Walt was doing, she could only tell the truth. And Walt was like, no, you could have just said, Walt is fine. So now Skyler wants to deflect and she says, I don't like how you're speaking to me. And Walter says, well, I don't like the way you talk about my private affairs to people that aren't even in our lives anymore. So then Walt tells her that Elliot offered him a job. And when he turned it down, Elliot offered to pay for his treatment. And Walt turned that down too. And of course, we know that Skyler is definitely against that. Next, Badger comes over to Jesse's house and they go into the RV. And we see that Jesse has learned a few things from Walter, such as the names of the beakers and flask, okay? Because as you can recall, Jesse did not know the names of all those things, okay? Nor did he use them, right? So anyway, after Badger gives Jesse his props for knowing his stuff, he shows Jesse that he came through with the pseudo as promised. So they go out to the desert and Jesse starts to cook Only he's not satisfied with the batch because it came out cloudy and not glass-like the way Mr. White cooked it. So Jesse throws the batch away and proceeds to try again. But Badger wasn't feeling that because he wanted to smoke some. But Jesse was like, we can't smoke it. This is for our customers and they're going to be expecting quality stuff. And I was like, look at Jesse sounding like Mr. White. I was definitely proud of him, okay? Anyway, on the second try, the same thing happens, and Badger was like, no way, man. You're not throwing that away. I had to work extra hard swinging that sign to get that stuff. But Jesse didn't care, okay? And they start fighting, and Badger finds himself outside the RV, and Jesse locks the door on him and drives off. Okay, now we saw that Badger was kind of getting the best of Jesse. He kind of did the little spin and all that stuff, the helicopter spin and everything, and then Jesse had to like throw some powder or something like that in Badger's face and then kind of like pushed him out of the door of the RV. And this freaking guy, he had like a crossbow with him, Badger, and he tried to load the crossbow and shoot it at the RV. I'm like, yo, bro, you're really wilding out right now, okay? But Jesse left him out there, and I'm just like, hey, if they're gonna go that route, and this is what happens when you're dealing with people that are addicts, you know, you just don't know what's gonna happen. Like, you're not sure if you're ever gonna be safe with them because he's throwing away the drugs, and not only did he want to be partnered with Jesse, but he also wanted to smoke the stuff. So that's part of the problem right there, right? I mean, we have Walt and Jesse who were trying to partner up before, and Jesse wanted to be the one to smoke it all. So it's just not a good combination, guys. And this right here would have been a terrible combination as well because of the fact that they both used meth, okay? All right, guys. Next, Walter Jr. gets busted by an off-duty cop for asking him to buy a case of beer for him and his friends. So Walt Jr. calls Hank, who he lies and says is his father. Okay, and the cop lets Walt Jr. off with a warning. And then Hank tells Walt Jr. that what he did was not cool. And Walt Jr. says, what, you never tried to buy beer when you were my age? And Hank says, no, I'm talking about you calling me instead of your father. You know, how do you think that's going to make him feel? And I was like, you know what? I really appreciate the fact that every time somebody tries to step in, like the first time when his wife Marie was like, can you talk to Walter Jr.? He's smoking weed. And he was like, that's his father's job. I like the fact that he always remembers that Walter is the father of this kid. Why do y'all have me trying to step in? Like, it doesn't make sense. And it is actually a little rude and inconsiderate. And also, it could be a little damaging to the ego. And we kind of see already that Walt has a lot of pride. So finding this out would not be a good thing for his ego, right? But anyway, of course, when he gets home, Skyler's like, I don't even want to talk to you. I don't know what to say to you. So Walt Jr. goes to his room, and Hank tells Skyler not to tell Walt because Jr. is just acting out after finding out his father is sick. He mentions the whole pot thing, and Skyler's like, pot? You know, he doesn't smoke pot. So now Marie gets blown up for going behind Skyler's back with that whole thing. But Skyler says, I wasn't talking about Walt Jr. I was talking about Walt Sr. He's smoking pot and he says he likes it, right? So Hank starts laughing and everything. He's like, wow, I didn't think the guy had it in him, you know? Then Skyler says, Walt hasn't been himself lately. I think we need to sit down and talk to him, you know, because who refuses to get treatment, especially when it's completely paid for? So Marie is not stupid, okay? She sees that this is going to be an intervention and she doesn't seem comfortable with it. Neither did Hank, okay? But they showed up nonetheless, okay? Now, by the way, Skyler also told them that she hadn't seen Walt since that morning. So I was like, what? Like, where the heck was he at then, you know? And I don't recall seeing any evidence of that in this episode, which is kind of odd. Maybe I missed something, but I did watch it twice, but whatever, okay? Next, we get to the intervention, and Skyler has the talking pillow going around, but she wants to control everything, okay? And she doesn't want Walt to say anything until after everyone else speaks, okay? Now, she tells Walt that his decision is not in his best interest or in the best interest of the entire family, okay? And then Walt Jr. goes and he tells his father that he's a P word because he's ready to give up, okay? Then we have Marie who goes and she says, I think you should do whatever you want to do. All right. Because she started to get tired of everybody sitting there telling Walt what he needs to do, like he has no say in his future. Okay. Now, of course, this pisses Skyler off because she wanted everybody to see things her way. Then Hank chimes in and he says, yeah, give me the pillow back because I agree with Marie. If Walt wants to go out like a man, I say he should. So now there's a lot of arguing going on and a bunch of chaos, okay? But Marie is trying to shed light on the situation as a medical professional who sees cancer patients all the time, and they are freaking miserable doing chemo, all right? But they're there because someone else talked them into it, okay? Now, then Walt blows the horn and he says, listen, I got the pillow. It's my turn to speak, okay? He says, he doesn't want to do the treatment because he wants to live out the rest of his days with quality of life, not being nauseous or unable to make love to his wife and her having to clean up after him, okay? Plus, he feels like all his life he never really made decisions for himself. And when it comes to this, he wants the decision to be his, right? So he's not going to do the treatment. Now, it was a sad speech, but he said what he said and he took a stand, okay? But even after saying all that, Skyler still refused to hear what Walt was saying. And she tells him to make the right choice. You know, after he says, when it comes to this cancer thing, I just want to make my own choice. And she says, so make the right choice, right? And then she goes on to say that his decision doesn't only affect him, it affects all of them. And she is right, guys. I just wish that she at least acted like she heard what he was saying or that she got where he was coming from. You know what I mean? But I do get it. She doesn't want her husband to die. And as for Walt, I get that he wants to finally make a decision of his own. But this is not the best time to start with that kind of attitude because, like his wife said, it doesn't just affect him. You know, he has his whole family to consider. His wife has a baby on the way. You know what I mean? Like he should try. Like it's his duty to try, right? But honestly, this is a very hard discussion to even comment on because who wants to be in either of these people's shoes? Who wants to be in Skyler's shoes and who wants to be in Walt's shoes? You know what I mean? But OMG, guys, the acting in this scene was freaking incredible. All right? Oh my gosh. Anyway, the next day, Walt wakes up and I guess he had some time to think. Plus, he sees the books about cancer on Skyler's nightstand along with the baby books, right? So he goes into the kitchen and he tells Skyler that he'll do the treatment. Okay, now we know this definitely makes her happy. It's a relief for her. She looked like she had a rough night, like she was crying all night and everything. And she don't need to be under that stress anyway. She's pregnant. So there you go. Okay. But now that he has an appointment for his first treatment, Skyler wants to know if Elliot will send a check to cover it. Okay, because this is clearly what they agreed on, right? But Walt tells Skyler that he'll take care of it. Now, to me, this meant that he would reach out to Elliot to make sure that the check was cleared, okay? But Walt had some time to think about what he was going to do, and he clearly decided that going back to selling meth was the only way, because the next thing we know, guys, he shows up at Jesse's house asking him if he wanted to cook, okay? Now, before we get to that scene, as he pulls up to Jesse's house, Gretchen calls him, okay? And she's like, oh, Elliot told me about the cancer, this and that. You know, she's kind of got tears in her eyes because, you know, her and Walt have a history together. They clearly used to be a thing, all right? I don't know how it turned out that she married Elliot and he went on to marry someone else or whatever. It could have been she went with the most successful dude. I really don't know what happened. Like, I think they touch more on it as the series goes on, but it's sporadic. So I don't remember exactly what happens, okay? But anyway, guys, she's telling him, listen, can you please take the money that Elliot offered you for treatment? Because as far as we're both concerned, that money is as much yours as it is ours and all of this, right? But Walt told her that it turns out that their insurance will pay for it, okay? And he's lying to her, right? Because he's just so prideful. You know, at this point, Walt is really about just kind of trying to reclaim his manhood. That's what I think. He's trying to reclaim his manhood because he probably felt like he never was really a man or he never manned up because he's a man, right? But I think he feels like he never manned up in his life ever, right? So the last thing he wants is another man coming to his rescue. And just like when Hank said, oh, I'm there for you. If anything happens, I'm gonna, I got your family, all of this. He don't want to hear none of that, and if anything happens to him, he wants to be the one to leave behind money for his family. And that's where he's at with everything, right? So anyway, guys, back to Walt and Jesse. All right. Now, when Walt finally sees Jesse, Jesse showed him the same kind of energy at first. Well, at least he tried to. But once Walt asked Jesse if he wanted to cook, Jesse had no words and the episode ended. So guys, that was the episode. That was the recap for episode 5. So let me know what you guys thought about this episode. If this is the first time that you're watching this, please let me know your thoughts in the comments, okay? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload more videos like this one. Until next time, you guys take care and be blessed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.